Okay, here we are in round 5, last round of the tournament. Blues has taken it at this point with 4 victories. Nobody else can match him from either group at this point. Most wins anybody else is sitting on, I do believe, are 2. So just mathematically impossible that 2 plus 1 equals 4 or 5, as it turns out. But we're still going to play game 5 just for the fun of it. So, we do have expensive fuel, expensive aluminum, and expensive steel this game, along with expensive silicon. Which means we could have some scavenger. Polina is in fact going to go for that scavenger, likely going to be looking at reactors on HQ2. Could work out reasonably well. I like this found from Blues. He's got water, he's got steel, he's got aluminum. That should work out very nicely for him moving forward. Definitely a spot I was looking at this game. Whereas Hi-Ho, he's going to get into some steel and aluminum right at the start. Definitely can respect that. He's also got a high iron tile near him and another high iron tile not far away, so he can get enough iron this game. Things might just be a little awkward moving forward, but of course he also has a nice patch of water nearby. That should work out pretty well. Gameslayer is our last to found. Going to get down after Polina hits 2. He's just going to take a bunch of aluminum as well on found. Going to get into a high aluminum tile. And he's just so far moving into some pretty basic stuff. We are going to once again see high aluminum, double steel out of Gameslayer. Somebody's going to have to be collecting iron this game, guys. We don't have a single person collecting iron yet. Definitely something to be watching out for. I think that in that situation, Hi-Ho is going to be doing all right because he pre-bought so much iron that he should be okay. I'd be tempted to, if I were him, go ahead and take that high, maybe even the high up near Gameslayer, just to be problematic and difficult for the fun of it. But, you know, you don't have to go that way. Polina did not elect to go into reactors quickly. Oxygen is pretty cheap, so it's an understandable decision. Instead, he's just trying to take a lot of aluminum in and push to 3 rapidly on that, while also securing silicon and water. That could work out okay for him. He has some reasonable options about where to go from here. The electrolysis is going to be alright at 30. The farms are going to be alright at 20. He is going to need to be looking at power as well, though. Probably wants to pick up a claim on the market, be able to get into a couple power. Could also just move into a geotherm pretty effectively. Instead, he's moving into 2 farms and extra water. I don't know if I would agree with that at all right now. Water's not too bad. Other people have moved into water already as well. Plus 2 pumps is enough to sustain the farm. I don't think the farm was actually the right call. Would have rather seen the reactor, but that's all right. We'll just see what happens from here. Blues could be hit by magnetic storms on his food. I don't know if they're quite grouped up in terms of their sins. And he's going to be careful with them. Make sure to launch him so that he can get that cash and get to that upgrade pretty quickly. Also, just not launching too much food at any given moment helps protect him from those magnetic storms. Nobody's going to want to hit a half-full single truck with that. That does mean Blues has caught up to HQ level 3, and lo and behold, solar panels coming down for Blues. What's going to happen this game, I wonder? No. No robots on the board this time. No offices on the board this time. Both of these things are going to contribute to keeping power lower. We also had a lot of farms down. Not a huge number of steel mills, just an adequate number for the most part. So power, instead of being $300, $250, whatever, it's only $140 at the moment. So players, Blues should not get to win this game purely based off of power, and you can already see that he's thinking that himself. He takes a claim auction for $24,000. That is going to let him secure all the water tiles next to him, move into some reactors very cleanly, get plenty of panels down, potentially could get a triangle going if he feels like getting rid of this aluminum mine. Definitely wouldn't fault him for that with Polina collecting so much aluminum in this game. He's got options moving forward, but one of them probably not just winning on power money this game.
HQ has been upgraded.
An expansive HQ has been upgraded.
All right. Well, level 4 for Polina. No surprise that he is staying ahead of upgrades. First to found as a scavenger. Working out very nicely for him. He is getting into those reactors, but once again, just a step behind Blues. Unfortunately, the reactors should be pretty solid money. But he's really going to want a full triangle of them to work with here. And unfortunately, he just doesn't quite have that going just yet. Still sitting on just one claim. Not sure, it seems, what to do with this floating claim. Well, it went somewhere. What do we got? Geotherm is what we're going to use that claim for, it seems. Which is all right. I think securing that second geotherm is going to be fine. That'll give him plenty of power for most of the rest of this game as a scavenger. Shouldn't be too much of a problem. You can always just upgrade power pretty easily. Pick up perpetual motion. All kinds of options to secure yourself on just 2 geotherms. So he should be all right moving forward. Once again, we've got a patent lab coming down from Blues. He is going to be prioritizing superconductor again this game. Just wants to make sure that he doesn't really need to rotate away from these panels. And that is what he elected to scrap his aluminum tile for. Nice to see him moving out of that. Just trying to make sure he doesn't fall out of the game on power himself. Game Slayer has no debt and a couple of wind turbines down. So that's going to be pulling in some small amount of money. You can see not a ridiculous amount. 2 wind turbines, excuse me. Usually not enough to make good, strong money from power, but he is at least holding steady and pulling something in off those tiles, which is much nicer than everybody else. Lots of mutinies landing, and then, of course, just a power surge ready to go. No superconductor shenanigans this game. Power surge, EMP, it was an EMP, excuse me. Frozen tiles regardless. Nobody wants the scientist to pull back into this one, and interestingly enough, it is Blues, but unfortunately, even if Blues gets knocked out here, it is just going to be too little, too late. But it would be nice to see somebody manage to pick up a game against him, right? That is what we would like to see. It is worth noting for any players who are latecomers that it is masqueraded, so we know who these players are, but they do not know who each other are. So despite the fact that Blues is the one getting attacked, that is just going to be because, well, he picked up superconductor, not because everybody's trying to pile on to Blues. Polina gets the claim for 16k. Game Slayer certainly didn't want that. He'd like to make the little bit of money he can from power, especially with this dust storm on the way. That's going to be nice for Game Slayer to see if he can keep that power price high until that storm hits. That'll be absolutely fantastic. Not what Blues wanted, though. Relying on these solar panels, they're going to be frozen pretty much until we get close to night, and then after that, dust storm is going to hit. Not going to be pleasant for Blues, unfortunately. He's already got a lot of debt. Things are just looking a little awkward for him moving forward. Nope. Game Slayer starting to push toward that upgrade. Not really there just yet. Polina is really the one being threatening this game. Having moved out of aluminum and into glass kilns, has so much aluminum stored up. Really doesn't need to worry about the fact that they're no longer producing it. Can easily upgrade if he'd like. Could move into an Offworld if he'd like. Offworld's looking really, really strong, so it is a definite option, but no holograms this game would be a bit of a risk. Upgrade going to be a lot safer use of that money. Does need to do something with the money. Just sitting on a giant pile of cash does nothing but make people worry about the fact that you've got a giant pile of cash. It makes them pay attention to you and watch you. You got to be investing somewhere. Patent Lab, Optimization Center, Hacker Array. There are options this game. Gotta pick one of them and go with it. Giant piles of money don't do anything until you actually spend them. And Polina looking to get aggressive against Game Slayer. Game Slayer is a little bit light on cash at this point, having just made a transition into electronics factories, which aren't doing much of anything for him. That was pretty expensive in the steel, so will Polina get to use this cash to finish this buy? I'm not entirely sure. With that EMP coming down, that's going to cut off a lot of the money, and it wasn't very much money in the first place. The reactors were really the only thing getting anything done at this point. Reactors and these elemental quarries. So that's going to make it difficult for Polina to push through and finish things off. Meanwhile, Game Slayer does have access to some iron, which is going to be pulling in money. And then also has available these electronics factories, pulling in some money. But I don't know, it's going to be pretty darn close if Game Slayer can actually finish securing himself before Polina gets it done. I think he's going to do it. But man, it's a lot more narrow than he'd like. Needs to get those steel mills turned back on.
Scavenger HQ has been upgraded.
I'm curious what triggered that spike in steel. Was it an upgrade? I don't think so. Which means theoretically somebody threw down something big. But I'm not seeing anything all that important at the moment. Maybe it was just a large transition out of Blues forcing that steel spike. That's always a possibility. Worth pointing out, teleportation, slant drilling, and superconductor on over to Blues, but D levels of debt still has not managed to pull himself out of that. And teleportation is actually doing literally nothing for him at the moment, with all of his tiles adjacent to his headquarters. Looks like Polina did go ahead and give up on that buy for the moment, instead moving to HQ level 5 along with Hi-Ho. Gameslayer still not in a comfortable spot though, with so much of his stock taken away. He is going to have to come up with something creative to keep himself in this game. Polina also moving into a couple optimization centers, which is okay, but not great realistically. On-world prices have never gotten out of control this game. Everybody's really managed to keep themselves in check. Nobody letting things get too out of control. And so these might help secure a future off-world market, but that's really what Polina needs to be looking to, is getting to that off-world. Upgrading carbon might not be a bad idea. Upgrading food could work out okay as well. But I think that potentially trying to get to thinking machines and then into off-worlds would have really been the strong route this game. Blues is headed to virtual reality. After that, he'll be after thinking machines. Nobody will be able to stop him from that, I do believe, with this goon squad protecting it. So that is thinking machines locked out from everybody else. Polina, I really gotta say, sitting on all this cash, not getting anything done with it though. Giant piles of cash don't do anything. You gotta make something happen. You gotta get to the patent lab. You gotta get aggressive in the black market. You gotta buy somebody out. There are options here, but you gotta make sure to follow through with them. Otherwise, you're just sitting there being a vague threat that isn't actually ever gonna get anything done. And Blues managed to pull back into a B-level rating with Cook the Books. Is going to stay all right. Low stock price, but definitely isn't out of things just yet. Hi-Ho, on the other hand, less debt, but a bigger bond rating problem with Cook the Books probably not having been purchased just yet. That is going to leave things just a little bit awkward. Well, Blues has a nice multicolored bit of stock over against him right now. That's going to make him feel a little bit threatened, of course, with his low-ish stock price still. But Polina is going to need 267 to finish this off. Hi-Ho, on the other hand, 289. So things are still looking okay for Blues. Nobody's going to knock him out just yet. But we'll see what happens moving forward. He is still pretty darn cheap.
Congratulations.
Getting aggressive in the stock market himself is Blues, saying, well, Hi-Ho, you haven't defended yourself just yet. It's a nice way to slow everybody else down. Just make absolutely sure that they have to defend themselves too. Decent way to keep yourself from getting bought out crazy fast. Well, aluminum spiked at one point, and Gameslayer was the one to catch it. He's going to get a nice boost out of that, and Gameslayer staying out of the stock shenanigans. Staying out of, realistically, pretty much everything this game. Might have a chance to sneak in here and get something interesting done. Hi-Ho was the one, it's worth pointing out, to go ahead and pull that off-world trigger. Nobody's gotten too aggressive against it just yet. It is defended, so that will be a food launch out of this for the time being. Very, very nice for Hi-Ho that he's the one that managed to go ahead and get that done, and nobody else is really punishing him for it just yet. Blues is going to be preoccupied in his own territory in a lot of ways. But I would expect to see this this goon squad with a fair amount of aggression against it pretty soon. The problem is, you have no tools this game that are going to be strong for getting through a goon squad. You've got EMPs and mutinies, and you don't want to be handing either of those over to your opponent. There's no network viruses, there's no circuit overload. You can tell the goon squad is there with the spy, but that's really all you've got going for you. So I really, really like that players are finally moving into these off-world markets. Yeah, they're probably going to get shut down at some point, and Gameslayer, even being incredibly aggressive with his markets, is putting them next to the colony in order to make sure that he has fast launches once his launches are active. Also worth pointing out that Gameslayer with the double off-world. See, these can also never get knocked down, so he's just buying defensive mutinies right now. Making sure that he gets those secured so that he can defend himself in case players get aggressive with mutinies instead of EMPs. Very, very nice move out of Gameslayer. I am a little bit concerned about his Offworlds being a little closer together than they needed to be. This placement is not as good as this placement in a lot of ways. Both of them have 2 adjacency with the important warehouses that make you launch faster. But this one, unfortunately, leaves him just a little bit more vulnerable to EMPs. It's only 3 tiles away instead of 4. Just something to point out. It's a small thing, but every little bit can count in some of these games that end up very, very close. Alright, so the water engine going on over to Gameslayer. That'll just be a small boost his direction. Not quite as much debt going on. Always nice to not have just quite as much debt happening. And now, finally, Gameslayer, now that he has secured his Offworlds, he has gotten his mutiny put up, he even has a goon squad down to help defend himself. Now he finally buys into his stock. This is very aggressive play that he could make based on the fact that his opponents were so busy all fighting each other. Now, Blues, it looks like, has stolen away an Offworld from Hi-Ho, who is unable to respond and take it back himself. But Hi-Ho still has double Offworld down as well. Polina has 1, moving into 2, whereas Blues, he does not have an actual Offworld market on the board yet, which is definitely a problem. Also a problem are all this ridiculous steel mills that are online for Blues. Not making a whole lot of money. It's really the Offworld markets where the cash is at this point. So Blues, he's managed to stay alive, but Hi-Ho is still so close to killing him on the back of these Offworlds, and Gameslayer is setting himself up into a pretty decent position afterward in order to hold on. Blues paid off a lot of debt, down to 50,000. Not quite all yet, but cooking the books, he has a pretty solid bond rating at this point. So that's always going to be nice to see. Blues holding on as long as he could, but finally gets knocked out of one of these games by Hi-Ho. Hi-Ho now, he's in a strong position in terms of having a subsidiary, and it's a scientific one, but no markets on that subsidiary, and both of our other players have decided, man, Hi-Ho is a problem that needs to be solved. 150,000 debt is hurting his stock price, still being boosted by the subsidiary, but I don't know if he can hold on to the onslaught of both Polina and Gameslayer, especially with EMPs still being down at 10,000 apiece. Alright, Polina also has taken away that Offworld market. Now it's been frozen by Gameslayer. Things are not looking particularly pleasant for Hi-Ho in a lot of ways. Let's go ahead and check tech quickly. We haven't looked at it too much. Hi-Ho with a lot of water and some food and oxygen, moving into more. Possibly a bit excessive on the water there, but you can see that he's only secured enough to kind of sustain himself, so I can forgive it a little bit as it currently stands. Gameslayer with no tech whatsoever. Polina, on the other hand, sitting on 2 food, moving into 3. Food is definitely the valuable thing this game, because that's what you were looking at for Offworlds, right? 750 on the food, and it's a lot easier to mass produce the food than it is to produce the oxygen. So I think that's what you are looking to upgrade for the most part. Network fires for 12,000 is actually a pretty darn big deal for Hi-Ho. That'll let him potentially blast through a goon squad and get a guaranteed mutiny onto an Offworld market. I know he's after Gameslayer, but he might look at attacking Polina as his best bet right now. Well, it's really a hard call. You're up against a scavenger and a guy who's had a mutiny preloaded for a very, very, very long time this game. He did get the virus out and then just EMP the Offworld market. Definitely can't argue against that, I think. Hi-Ho with the EMP on Gameslayer, but being EMP'd out also by Polina. These EMPs starting to lose power because they're starting to get just a bit too expensive, but with Offworld markets worth this much money, you can pay for some expensive EMPs this game and have them still get plenty of work done. And another nice thing for Gameslayer, by the way, is, yeah, the EMP hits his market, but at least his food is fine. This EMP, it hit food, it hit glass, it hit the market. That's another great thing about having put his markets over next to the warehouses, is they're better defended against those extra tools, especially without dynamite available this game. 419,000 for Gameslayer. He needs 600 to get the kill, though, and then Polina is still going to be a threat. Hi-Ho, I don't know if he's going to win this one, but man, he created a bit of an interesting situation this game. And on top of that, he only needs 392 from here to clean it up. So he's looking at about 300,000 more. Gameslayer, though, he needs about 200,000 more. Probably a bit more than that, considering he's unlikely to be willing to cancel his launches in order to move forward this game. Oxygen launch about to finish up. Where's that going to put Gameslayer?
Launch affirmative.
Nope. 438 at this point. Mutiny does finally land once again onto Hi-Ho's market. Gameslayer finally using that mutiny aggressively. And it will be getting some work done, but I think diminishing returns are really hitting this market hard at this point. When it comes to the black market attacks, it's been hit consistently and repeatedly, and so suddenly the mutinies are just becoming less and less and less and less and less effective over time, because that's been pretty much the one market that's been getting mutinied all game. At least that's what it seems to me, based on the fact that this mutiny does not seem to be lasting a very long period of time. Alright. See if we can keep up on the launches and the cash. Polina is sitting on so much money. He's looking to potentially be able to knock out Hi-Ho before long. Could also start going after Gameslayer. Hi-Ho not on a whole lot of cash, but only needs about double his current amount to finish off Gameslayer. Gameslayer has it on Hi-Ho, though. So now is when things get weird, because now Polina can buy into Gameslayer very effectively and leave himself in a potentially very, very strong position this game. Whereas Gameslayer, you can see he's got more cash, but he has to get through 5 of Polina's stock with only a small advantage in subsidiaries and stock price. That is going to be difficult to do, to say the least. He has this extra off-world market operating for him for the time being that he's stolen away from his own subsidiary. But I doubt it's going to be enough. Polina needs 657,000 to finish this up, whereas Gameslayer, if he were to completely buy everything right now, needs 921. And he is behind on cash right now, so things are not looking pleasant for him. Both players, now in D levels of debt, lock themselves away from the black market, which I think they're going to be okay with. Without good ways to break through these goon squads, Gameslayer has not wanted to get aggressive against them with these EMPs, as he does have an ungooned market himself. So I imagine he was not looking to utilize that market anyways. Alright, Gameslayer, what do you got? As Gameslayer buys stock, his price will continue to go up, though. So that will definitely work in his favor. I imagine he should be looking to do that pretty rapidly, realistically. He was kind of watching, it looked like, maybe Polina's stock price to see when it would stop going down for a moment. And now he's just started buying into it, which will keep knocking it down further and further and further. So now we're actually seeing the reality of the situation. Gameslayer on 67, but needs 400 more to finish this out. Polina only needing about 250 more to actually get this done. 200 once you count in the current launches that are available. Blue's left. He says maybe Polina has this. We'll just have to see. At least that's what I assume he's assuming, because that's how it looks to me right now. Man, yeah, 100,000 more is all Polina needs to get this done. Gameslayer trying his best to push through, but unfortunately still needs about 300, and he just doesn't have that much more cash flowing in, especially because Polina's been sitting on those optimizations all this time, on this food. That has been a lot of cash going over toward Polina a lot more easily. That's been doing nice work for Polina. Hi-Ho calls GG and leaves as well. Gameslayer still in it. He's still holding on, and his stock price keeps going up as well. Gameslayer may be able to pull this off with a little bit, potentially, of mismanagement of territory from Polina. Because on-world price is not all that relevant still. Gameslayer has paid down a very large amount of debt, though, which leaves him with very little cash to actually go ahead and finish this game up. Also, unfortunately, has nothing to do with the black market to slow Polina down, and Polina is going to end up being the one to go ahead and take this on the back of those launches. Polina managing to be the only player to actually beat Blues today. Very impressive.